So I want to know, Mystery Crew, are you ready? Are you ready for what's on the other side? What's up, Mystery Crew? It's Mystery Girl with Missy, and I'm Missy. I'm bringing you back to Long Island, and we are going to one of the most haunted, yes, the most haunted psychiatric hospitals on Long Island. I have up my fair use disclaimer, and I also have up a trigger warning. But before we get into it, I want to ask you all to do me a huge favor. Slam that like button. Let's get into it. We're going to Kings Park. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to stay tuned to the end of this video for actual footage of a paranormal investigation. If you have been following my channel for a while, you know how I feel about places like this. I've called out quite a few hospitals already, and I plan on continuing to do so for the way they treated their residents, their patients, and it's just so disgusting to me and horrific how these people were treated. My heart breaks working in the medical field with medically frail children, adults and teenagers, and then moving on to work with adults with Alzheimer's and dementia. I have over 20 years experience in the field, and I could never imagine treating any one of my patients the way that these patients were treated. All of us have someone that we know or someone in the family that suffers from a mental illness, and to think that they could have been treated like this is sickening. So let's get into the background of Kings Park Psychiatric Hospital. Kings Park Psychiatric Center is a landmark on Long Island. It's located at the Nessequock River State Park at 799 St. John Len Road in Kings Park, New York, originally Smithtown, New York, which is Kings County, New York. It's known by locals as Kings Park Asylum. Some refer to it just as Kings Park. It depends on who you're talking to and what you're talking about. But if you don't know about this place, you've been living under a rock somewhere, or you're new to Long Island. Kings Park had its own food storage warehouse, daycare center, staff housing, had its own firehouse, laundry building, police, morgue, where they did their own autopsies, a power plant that distributed power through the underground tunnels, a maintenance shop, halfway houses, and a railroad spur, among some. It had its own farmland, which at one point they did use as what they thought was therapy. It operated from 1885 to 1996, containing 151 buildings by the time it closed on 800 acres of land. It closed in 1996 when the state of New York closed the facility, releasing its few remaining patients or transferring them to the still operational Pilgrim State Psychiatric Center in Brentwood, which is in Suffolk County, Long Island, and it's still operating today. If you have not seen my Pilgrim State video, it is linked in the description below, because I want you to see the similarities between the two and how treatment was actually thought, okay, this is the right way to treat patients back in that time period. So if you haven't seen that video, it's linked in the description. Kings Park Psychiatric Center was established in 1885 by Kings County in New York, which is also in nearby Suffolk County. The official name of the hospital for the first 10 years was Kings County Asylum. Back in the 1800s, early 1900s, facilities of this type were called asylums, mental asylums, psychiatric asylums. The word asylum was usually put in this category of hospital. So the word Kings came from the name of the county that Brooklyn, New York had occupied. At the time, the hospital was revolutionary in the sense that it was a departure from the asylums of folklore, which were overcrowded places where gross human rights were abused, and mental and physical abuse had often occurred because there was never enough staff to handle the amount of patients that were inside of these hospitals. The asylum that was built by Brooklyn to alleviate overcrowding in its own asylums was a farm colony. So Kings Park Psychiatric Center was built as a farm colony, and it was built where the patients would be able to work in a variety of farm-related activities, such as feeding livestock and growing food and picking the food, whether it be corn or tomatoes or, the eggs from the chickens. And this was considered to be a form of therapy. And they were actually able to make money that was considered credit. They weren't actually given like bills or change. It was like a card that they could use at the local county store in the Kings Park community there. They had their own little city. So they had their own little store there where the patients that worked on the farm were paid on that card. And, might have been $1 or $2 for the day. But then if, they wanted to go to the store and maybe buy a piece of hard candy, they would give their card as payment and the money would be deducted off that card. Kind of like the way a credit card uses, except that it was prepaid. The Kings Park Asylum unfortunately began to suffer from what it attempted to relieve, which was overcrowding. The windows of the buildings at the time in the 1800s, 1900s, these buildings were absolutely beautiful. They were brick, they were concrete, but they all had bars on the windows, and each room housed between 4 to 10 people at a time of when they were overcrowded. So these rooms, some of them were like corridors, which you'll see photos in the live video later on, that were meant for, say, four beds in a room. You'll see 10 beds in those rooms. There was beds in the hallways. So as times went on, the overcrowding just overtook the hospital. New York State responded to the problem in 1895 when control of the asylum passed into the state hands, and it was renamed the Kings Park State Hospital, replacing the name Kings County Asylum. The surrounding community, which used to be known as Indian Head, adopted the name Kings Park, which it is still known as today. Kings Park is actually a beautiful town in Long Island. It's absolutely beautiful, very quaint, very small, but it's just an absolutely gorgeous community. And in the middle of this is this big abandoned hospital. Now, the town of Kings Park got its name from the hospital, Kings Park, because so many of the people that lived in the surrounding area ended up working at the asylum. So their houses were in that area, and as time went on, the name Kings Park went on to the town, and the town is still called Kings Park. The surrounding community, which used to be known as Indian Head, adopted the name Kings Park. And it's, like I said, it's absolutely a beautiful area. The state eventually built the hospital into a self-sufficient community that not only grew its own food, but also generated its own heat and electricity, as well as having its own Long Island Railroad spur, and housed its staff right there on site. Now, the difference between Pilgrim State and Kings Park is the railroad in Kings Park was a spur, where in Pilgrim State, the railroad would actually bring family members in to visit on the train, and they would have a schedule. It also brought in supplies that was needed, but it did bring in patients and residents, family members, so they could visit with them, which this railroad spur in Kings Park was not for. As the population grew throughout the early years of the 20th century, the hospital continued to expand. By the late 1930s, 1939 to be exact, the state began to build upward instead of outward. During this time, the famous 13-story building number 93 was built. It stands at an astonishing 143 feet tall. The building was often dubbed the most famous asylum building on Long Island. The construction of this building was completed in 1939 to 1941, finishing up the little touches. It was used as an infirmary for the facility's geriatric patients, as well as for patients with chronic physical ailments. This is also where the lobotomies and the electroshock therapy was done. Beginning in the 1970s, the upper floors began to close down until only the very first 4 floors of the building were in use. It closed completely in 1992, with utilities being shut off in 1993. After World War II, the patient population at Kings Park and the other Long Island asylums increased. In 1994, the patient census topped 9,303, but would decline afterwards. But by the time Kings Park reached its peak population, the old rest and relax philosophy surrounding farming had been succeeded by more invasive techniques, such as prefrontal lobotomies and electric shock therapy. Those methods were soon abandoned after 1955, following the introduction of Thorazine, and this also was marked under the brand name Logistil. I can't pronounce it right, guys. You know, if I make a mistake, I'm going to say it. Logistil, sorry. This is an antipsychotic medication which is used to treat schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, attention deficit hypersensitivity in children, nausea and vomiting, anxiety before surgery, to name some of its uses. The medication was developed in 1950 and was the first antipsychotic on the market. The medication made it possible for patients to live normal lives outside of a mental institution, resulting in less need for large facilities such as Kings Park and the decrease of patient population. Or did it? By the 1900s, only the first few floors of the building were in use. Many patients were deinstitutionalized and large facilities were closed. There was a shortage of small community centers, which were never developed in the numbers that was actually needed. As a result, many suffering with mental illness were being retained in jails and prisons because of difficulties in dealing with the outside world. So after being in a mental facility where they have nurses and doctors not always treated the best, we'll get into that later in the video, they were just kind of put out there and they didn't know what to do. And as a result of this, they had difficulty keeping up with their medication schedule. Now, if somebody is really suffering a mental illness, a lot of times, like especially if they're suffering from schizophrenia, bipolar, depending on how severe these are, they're not going to remember to take their medication. They're not going to remember to go to follow-up appointments to get this medication filled. So as a result, they are not taking their medication and they're wandering the streets aimlessly. And in a lot of situations, such as like what I do know happened with Pilgrim State, these patients were roaming the street and people were actually afraid of them. They were hanging out down by the railroad station in Brentwood for Pilgrim State. And people were terrified of them, and some of them were actually killed because of it, because people felt like they were being followed and they were in danger. So as a result, they would protect themselves. And result, this poor mental patient who was just dropped off and, thinking, they're going to do okay on the street because they have this medication, Thorazine, but if they're not taking it, they're going back to their old ways. So a lot of these patients either ended up dead in prisons or they were lost, they were roaming. It was just horrific what happened to a lot of these patients. And, it's like I said, from somebody being in the medical field that had worked with medically frail children and, seniors that had Alzheimer's and dementia, seeing this happen to somebody that I've actually seen wouldn't remember to take their own medication is so heartbreaking. And that's why I need to call these hospitals out. Yes, you didn't know some of the technology that is around today, but come on, common sense. You know not to put certain people on the street. You know if a patient is going to be able to continue their medication and know to take it. And maybe keep the doors open a little bit longer until smaller facilities are built. Houses that, can maybe, have 7 or 8 there living in a house with an around-the-clock nurse. Different ways to go about the release of the patients, especially with Kings Park, because a lot of them ended up in the streets of Manhattan and Brooklyn and Queens, the Bronx, which a lot of those areas are not good. I mean, yes, Manhattan is beautiful. Parts of Brooklyn are absolutely gorgeous. Parts of Queens are absolutely gorgeous. But you end up in an area that's not good. These patients are going to end up being killed. And it's just heartbreaking to me. Absolutely heartbreaking. In response to the declining patient population, the New York State Office of Mental Health developed plans to close Kings Park as well as another Long Island asylum, the Central Islip Psychiatric Center, that was built in 1889, 4 years after Kings Park. And it had a population of 10,000 in 1955, with Kings Park population 1 year earlier at 9,303. These numbers made Central Islip's second largest in the United States after Pilgrim State Hospital, with a population of 13,000 875 in 1954. That's almost 4,000 more than Central Islip 1 year earlier, which was the largest psychiatric institution to exist in the United States. And again, if you have not seen my documentary on Pilgrim State Psychiatric Hospital, I put the link in the description below. It's almost at 10,000 views if it's not there already by the time of the release of this video. It's my #1 video that has been watched, and I'm very excited and very proud of it. So, like I said, if you haven't taken a look at it, please do so. The description is in the link below. So I had received on that video so many comments that were so touching to me from the families that reached out to me thanking me for making the documentary, that the video, like I said, is almost at 10,000, if not there already. And those comments mean so much to me because I know my reasoning for making these videos, but I never had expected it to touch so many families in the way that it did. I have families reaching out to me saying, I had a family member there and oh my God, I did not know the treatment they went through. My father was there, and as a child, it was never told to us what they were dealing with when they were there. And now I understand so much more of my father. So that's another reason that I make these videos, is not only to call them out, but to inform families and friends of what their family members had gone through and to give them a better understanding. So to all the family members out there, I hope this answers some of your questions. And if you do have any more questions, please feel free to comment and ask. I have no problem with that. So Pilgrim State had actually opened its doors in 1931, which was 46 years after Kings Park Psychiatric Center, and it is still in use today, located in Brentwood in Suffolk County, Long Island. The plans to close Kings Park and Central Islip were implemented in the fall of 1996, with their remaining patients being transferred to Pilgrim State. So the ones that were not released were transferred to Pilgrim State. This was the ending of Kings Park Psychiatric Center, 111-year run, with building #1 being the last facility to close. In November of 2012, as a long-term adult patient care center, the halfway houses built in 1987 are still in use today and operated by New York State. On August 14th, the demo of Cafe 56 began, and the towering smokestacks were imploded on March 27th of 2013, still leaving many buildings abandoned, which is now a huge site for paranormal investigators and, unfortunately, vandals who go into these buildings and just demolish them. They do graffiti on the walls, and it's just so sad what the inside of most of those buildings look like, and dangerous as well because of the asbestos. People who are going in to do paranormal investigations, they're wearing masks and gloves and they're protected, but #1, you get caught in there, you're in trouble. So let's move on. Let's get into the treatments that were used at Kings Park Psychiatric Hospital. But before we do, there is a trigger warning. A lot of these images are very graphic, very hard to look at, especially the video that you're going to see coming up. So treatment at Kings Park, we're going to go back to the 1890s again because that's where the treatment starts. So in 1893, only 8 years after opening Kings Park Psychiatric Center, it was so overcrowded that the buildings were found to be unsuitable. Facilities having inadequate clothing, they were torn, they were ripped, they didn't fit. The food was often unfit for humans. And, a lot of times they had like restricted diets for certain people as well. And even that was unfit for humans to digest. It was unhygienic. It was dirty. The halls were full of beds. There was urine and feces. It was absolutely unhygienic. An extension of the Kings County Lunatic Asylum in Flatbush, which is in Brooklyn, New York, and it was originally called Kings County Asylum, with New York State changing its name to Kings Park State Hospital in 1895. Then another name came to change the name again to Kings Park Psychiatric Center. It was supposed to be a place to help overcrowding and help patients with mental illness. By 1900s, the facility housed 2,697 patients with a staff of only 454. Yes, 267 patients with a staff of only 454. That is just absolutely insane. Where I worked, we had 7 individuals, and there was 4 staff members on at each time, as well as a nurse and sometimes an RN. That is just unbelievable. The patient population was actually larger than the entire town of Smithtown at that time. Just think about that. That's crazy. It was a self-contained city with power plants, maintenance, nursing, dormitories, police, fire, a railroad spur to bring in supplies. 2 marinas were on the ground. It had tennis courts, post office, beautiful homes for the doctors. The doctors actually lived on the grounds. A greenhouse, a morgue, a cemetery that was called Potter's Field, and it is still there for those with no families. Employees that worked there said it was upbeat and cheerful. It had beautiful gardens. It faced the Long Island Sound. It was safe for kids to come and play. They actually rode their bikes there. The neighborhood would come and have picnics there. And they all played on the grounds. Employees said they considered patients friends, not patients. It was a happy place. Or was it? I've seen videos of employees that had worked there as well, stating that they themselves, after working at Kings Park, began to fall into such a depression that they couldn't even get out of bed to go to work anymore. And that they themselves started having mental illnesses and didn't want to be around people or be a part of society anymore. That things that they had seen had just totally overtaken them. So was it as happy as some of these other employees say it was? Well, when the old rest and relaxation technique with farm colonies was succeeded with more invasive techniques like prefrontal lobotomies and electric shock, straight jackets, insulin-induced coma, patients beating each other by choking. They were choking each other. It was considered common. Patients were locked away in isolation or treated with electric shock therapy, where those considered by staff to be difficult patients. So if a staff member found you to be a difficult patient, they would actually send you for electric shock therapy, and this was a common practice. These places, yes, they were dealing with different situations at the time in the 1800s, early 1900s, and they were doing with what they had. But of a staff of 454 to almost 3,000 patients, these nursing staffs, what we consider CNAs now, they probably had no patience at all for any of the residents at this place. Instead of finding out what the situation was going on, what was making them irritable, they just sent them for electric shock therapy. Or they would be put in like a holding cell that was on the floor. It had bars on it, and it was like its own separate hallway. Absolutely sickening and definitely not acceptable. There were even rumors of patients being taken to the underground tunnels to be tortured due to bad behavior. Some patients did escape, or tried to escape anyway. Some patients are reported to have been killed at Kings Park, and beatings by staff as a result of becoming problematic. Another common occurrence were patients beating and choking each other, and no one stepped in to stop this from happening. We're going to get into the treatments now. Again, there is a major trigger warning for this section. We're going to start with electric shock therapy. 1951 was the start of shock therapy, and it was hailed a great therapeutic breakthrough. Kings Park was one of the first to use it. The first to receive this cruel treatment were a group of chosen women, as well as patients suffering from epileptic seizures or depression, aiming to replicate benefits by inducing a seizure through electricity or insulin injection. They were strapped down to a bed. They were fully conscious. Patients could convulse for almost 15 minutes. Yes, I said 15 minutes at a time. They endured enough force to fracture and break bones. What blows me away, besides this horrible treatment, is that once patients were admitted to Kings Park, or any other psychiatric asylum for that matter, they had no right to give permission or deny permission for this or any other procedures. And what makes me sick over this is shock therapy was not only used for medical reasons, it was used to keep unruly patients in line instead of trying to find out what the reason was that the patient was acting out. It was used as a punishment. This was performed at Kings Park at Building 93 on the 3rd floor. It was designated the Shock Therapy Department. And what's really strange to me is that when I was doing the research and trying to find information, when I was looking at Pilgrim State, they had information on all the treatments. It was everywhere. But Kings Park, for some reason, it was kind of hidden. And I really had to dig deep to find out this information. So today, while shock therapy is still used, there are other treatments such as TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, which uses magnetic fields to stimulate the nerve cell in the brain to improve symptoms of major depression. It's a non-invasive procedure, and it is also used and approved for obsessive compulsive disorder. TMS is also used now to treat epilepsy. It has minor side effects such as some discomfort and pain, maybe a headache. You might feel lightheadedness. TMS started in 1985 and it has been FDA approved in 2008. Kings Park was operating until 1996. TMS treatment was not approved by the FDA while Kings Park was still in operation. In 1970, doctors from Kings Park advocated for electric shock therapy to be used and continued, but it died down by the end of the 20th century, even though it is still used and ongoing. 1953, just to give you an idea, approximately 300 patients at any given moment were subject to electric shock therapy. And what really hurts is, and I know I'm not alone, we all have someone that we know that suffers from depression, anxiety, maybe even schizophrenia, bipolar, that have been in these facilities and have endured this. And to think that they're sitting there for 15 minutes and the shock is so intense that they're convulsing for 15 minutes and their bones are breaking. It's just sickening to me. And that's why I had to include the TMS treatment because many don't know about it, and it has been proven to work and is used by many psychiatrists' office, psychologists' office, probably know about it. Everybody, it's very well known at this point, and yet electric shock therapy is still used. All right, guys, let's move on to the next one. The lobotomy is remembered as one of the most grotesque treatment methods of the era, in which a metal tool was inserted through the eye socket into the skull cavity and wrenched around to sever the connections of the prefrontal cortex from the rest of the brain. This is such a cruel, cruel, cruel treatment. And guys, trigger warning, okay? Like I said, horrible and grotesque treatment of Kings Park was the prefrontal lobotomy, a procedure that used a metal tool that was inserted through the eye socket into the skull cavity, an ice pick to be exact. Then it was wrenched around to sever the connections of the prefrontal cortex from the rest of the brain. It was brutal and violent, and it was an operation which left the patients with no trace of their former selves. Some refer to this treatment as giving the patient a second childhood, but a more accurate description of these patients after treatment would be zombies. They became extremely violent. They were disturbed and permanently docile, passive, and very easy to control, which I guess is what some of the employees and doctors and nurses had wanted. Walter Freeman II is the gentleman who created the treatment that used the ice pick. He was born in 1895 in Philadelphia and relocated to Washington, D.C. in 1924 and died in 1972. He attended Yale University from 1912 to 1916 and studied neurology at the University of Pennsylvania Medical School. He's an American physician who specialized in lobotomy. He invented the transorbital lobotomy procedure, which means the use of the ice pick. And this was done without the use of anesthesia, instead using electroconvulsive therapy to induce a seizure and then leave the patient unconscious. This did not require a neurosurgeon, and it could be performed outside of an operating room. He traveled across the United States to perform lobotomies, sometimes doing 2 at the same time. He was doing 2 lobotomies at the same time. Just think about that. That's sickening. He personally performed 4,000 lobotomies on patients as young as the age of 5 and a total of 19 minors. He did as many as 100 of his patients had actually died of cerebral hemorrhage from doing this procedure. He was banned from performing surgery in the year of 1967. Freeman's procedure spread across the world. He idolized Egas Moniz, the inventor of the leucotomy. Freeman modified Egas Moniz leucotomy and named it lobotomy. He enlisted the help of neurosurgeon James Watts and directed him through the first prefrontal lobotomy on September 14, 1936, on a housewife, Alice Hood Hammett of Kansas, who suffered from anxiety, insomnia, and depression. In 1950, Watts left their partnership due to his opposition of transorbital lobotomy. He formulated a new procedure, calling it transorbital lobotomy, which means that there was no anesthesia used, and this is what Watts was against. The name gained popularity despite criticism following a lobotomy on President John F. Kennedy's sister, Rosemary, which left her with severe mental and physical disabilities. In 1967, he performed his final surgery on Helen Mortensen, a long-term patient receiving her third, yes, I said third, lobotomy from Freeman. Mortensen died of cerebral hemorrhage. 15% of his patients died from this procedure, and in 1951, one patient at Iowa's Mental Health Institute died when Freeman suddenly stopped for a photo during the procedure, and the surgical instrument penetrated too far into the patient's brain. Freeman never wore gloves or a mask during any of his procedures, and he coined the term surgically induced childhood. This is one sick man, in my opinion. How would he feel if somebody was doing this to him with no anesthesia and first subjecting them to shock therapy to put them into a coma? This is just so sickening and unethical, and to come up with a way specific so anesthesia didn't have to be used, so he was able to do it when Watts quit. This way he did not need a neurosurgeon. As if the procedure itself wasn't grotesque enough, now he's making it worse. Guys, I know some of that was really hard to watch, and I do apologize, but some family members may have gone through this, and like I said from my other videos, when they saw Pilgrim State, it helped families understand what their families had undergone, so I did need to include it. One of the next treatments is straitjackets, which was probably the least cruel. This was used throughout history. If a patient was unruly or uncontrollable, they had a jacket that would go on them, and sometimes they actually had to strap them down to get this jacket on them, and it would basically pin their arms underneath this jacket and it would be strapped around them. A lot of times they would put the straitjacket on in order to bring them to a different type of treatment, such as hydrotherapy, electric shock therapy, or if there was a reasoning that they couldn't get them to say sit down and eat, they would put on a straitjacket and then they would shovel the food in their mouth so fast because they didn't want to be bothered feeding them. But meanwhile, they strapped their arms down, and a lot of times they would suffer from aspiration pneumonia because now they're strapped down and here's a nurse shoving food in their throat. A lot of times they were tied down to beds. A lot of times they were left in these straitjackets all day, where instead of putting them maybe in the jacket, sitting down with them, talking to them and finding out what's going on, what set you off, what is upsetting you. Sometimes not saying anything and just sitting there with the patient until they're ready to talk. They will be the first to speak. Sometimes they would just need to sit back instead of trying to be in their face and just give them the time that they need to let out their anger. Put them in a safe place where they're not going to hurt themselves, which was another reason straitjackets were used, but find out what's going on first. The next was insulin coma therapy, which is, oh my goodness. If you're a diabetic, you have experienced what diabetic coma is, and insulin coma therapy was started at Kings Park in 1937, and it's the administration of insulin to a non-diabetic patient. If enough of the insulin is given to the patient will go into a coma. During the 1930s and 40s, psychiatrists promoted this idea, believing when repeating it often enough, it was an effective treatment for residents of asylums. The procedure caused severe and permanent brain damage. This treatment was commonly used up until the early 1950s, leaving patients in a docile, childlike state, just like the lobotomy and the electric shock therapy. And this is just so heartbreaking. The next is hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy, if you have watched my Kings Park video, you're familiar with it, is a very cruel treatment. It's also known as tub therapy, and this was performed in building number 7, which was the medical surgical building. Hydrotherapy also took place here when it was built in 1966 and when it closed in 1990. Its current status is abandoned for building number 7. In the 19th century, cold rinses and days-long baths became a way to treat and control psychiatric patients. This involved putting them in a cold bath for hours and sometimes days. Yes, guys, I said days. They would bring them into these baths. Sometimes they had ice in them, and they believed they would wrap them in wet sheets as well. They believed that by being in this ice bath that it would cool them down and their psychotic episode would come to an end. Sometimes they were in there for up to a week, where nurses would just come in and take their vitals, their blood pressure, their temperature, their oxygen status, and they would leave them there. And this is where they ate. This is where they had a void. This is where they had a bowel movement. And they stayed there to the point where when it was time for them to get out, they were so weak, they could barely walk without any help. And it was just, talk about a cruel treatment. I mean, think about it. When you go in the pool and you're in the pool for a couple of hours, your skin starts getting all wrinkly. And imagine being in a pool for a week nonstop. Think about how your skin would look, how you would feel. Sometimes patients actually drowned during this procedure because there wouldn't be a nurse or an aide around, and they would just kind of slide into the tub, go under the water, and they would drown. But yet, here is another cruel, cruel treatment. I was able to find some of the medical equipment and what it looks like now. There wasn't too many pictures left because the buildings have been vandalized, but this is the old X-ray machine. I don't know which building this was. I believe it was building 93. I'm not sure. This chair actually looked like a gynecology chair to me. It did have stirrups on the bottom, but I'm not 100%. So we're going to get into the morgue and the cemeteries. Now, just like Pilgrim State, Kings Park did have its own morgue. And as you can see by these photos, vandals have totally gotten to this morgue. And it's very upsetting because these buildings are part of history. Now, the beds had two sides, one where they would go in once they were deceased, and then the other side was where they would perform the autopsy. So this wall actually separates two different rooms. So if you're in this building and you go to this building and you see that it connects to two different buildings, this is why. Those trays actually went into both of the rooms, and one would be once the resident had passed on, and then they would slide them over to the other room, which is where the autopsy was performed, and then once the autopsy was performed, they were put into the freezer section of the morgue. And, thank you to Diva Paranormal again, because guys, her and her son, they found the morgue when they went into these buildings to do their paranormal investigation. So you are going to be able to get to see firsthand what this looks like. Thank you again, Diva Paranormal. You guys, you rock. Guys, head over there and subscribe to them, by the way. Show them some love. They let us use their footage, and, thank you so much. This is the basement of Building 93. Building 93 is one of the most said to be haunted, and we're going to get into a lot of the buildings right now. I'm going to try to go through it really quick so we can get onto that paranormal investigation, guys. Okay, for the photos in this section, I do want to give credit to kingsparkmuseum.com for the pictures. I am using them under commentary purposes, so I am allowed to use them. And so we're going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, as there are 150 of them. Building 1 was built as a group of 5. Building 1 was the male reception hall, and it was built in 1934. It remained open, though, until 2012 and was used as a long-term adult patient care center. And it closed its doors to the patients since then. The building does have cameras in and outside, which is pretty interesting for anybody going out there to explore. Building 1 has cameras. Building 2 was for female reception, and it was demolished in the mid-1980s. After it was abandoned, it was used for fire practice. It was demolished between 1984 and 1986. Building 3 was employee quarters, and that is actually still standing, and it's still abandoned. Building 4 was part of the 10 buildings of group number 1. Building 5 was built in 1909 and 1910 is when it was completed. It was the maintenance shop, originally used for laundry, but turned into a woodworking shop and a lock shop. Building 6 was the powerhouse, also known as the second power plant, and that's where the twin smokestacks were that you saw in the beginning of the video, and again throughout the video. And that was located near the railroad spur. Number 7, one of the newest buildings built, and one of the most well-known, was the medical, surgical, and it was also an office building. It's a 10-story building that was built in 1966 and was connected to building 21 and 22 through the ground tunnels. The cube at the top of the building served as the water tower and supported radio antennas used by the Smithtown Department of Public Safety and Kings Park Fire Department. The water tank was removed. You did see that throughout the video as well, in February 2017, and it was done to improve the look of the area for the locals after years of standing there, and it was just kind of an eyesore. Number 15 was the violent patient ward, which is one of the creepiest buildings, also known as Wisteria House, and it's located on the other side of a meadow from the most talked about building, which is number 93. Building number 15 was a maximum security patient building, and it was built in 1939 to house violent patients, younger, more active patients. Employees would use a tackle-like you see in football in order to put the straitjackets on these patients. So as I was saying in the treatment of the videos, how they would pin them down, in this building they actually use like a football tackle technique to grab them, pin them down, sometimes pushing them up against a wall to get those straitjackets on. And these patients were mostly very highly medicated, Sometimes people that tried to commit the S word were actually brought here because they were considered a harm to themselves, violent. And again, instead of using different techniques, this was kind of like the jail of Kings Park. Then there was number 8. Building 8A is cottages that became the administration and administration buildings where telephone operators were located. The building was removed by the 1970s. Building B, also a cottage, was the medical and surgical building. The building was removed also in the 1970s. Building D was also a cottage, again, removed in the 1970s. Building number 11 is Building C, again, a cottage, which became the hospital's first nursing school. The building was removed by the 1970s and was built in between 1893 and 1897. So Building 11 actually became a nursing school. So if you were employed at Kings Park, you could attend nursing school and get your nursing degree right there on the grounds at Kings Park Psychiatric Center at Building 11 C. Number 12, which is C and D combined, is the kitchen and dining hall for the buildings. The building was removed also in the 1970s. It was built between 1895 and 1897. In the 1950s, it actually slid down the hill, and where it was built on a hill, and it actually slid down it and fell towards the power plant. The rubble remained there. They never did anything with it, and it was finally removed in the 1960s. That's absolutely crazy. Then there's building number 13, which I couldn't find anywhere. 13 and 14, could not find anywhere what those buildings were for. So if anybody does know what building 13 and 14 were, can you drop that in the comments below? And while you're at it, guys, please remember to hit that like up button for me. It's so important to get this video out into the algorithm. I really put so much time and research and dedication into it, and it would really help me just by slamming that like button for me. Building number 15, still standing, okay, and it's connected to the underground tunnels, which are sealed. They were sealed before the hospital closed. It is said that this building is extremely haunted by the torture of the spirits of the former patients. So we spoke about 15 earlier, which is the violent patient ward, but I did forget to mention that to you. So that patient is extremely haunted. Building 16 is another one that I could not find what it was. Number 17 is a tool house. 18, 2-family staff housing. 19 is 3-family staff housing. 20 was Ward 26, the original tinsmith shop. 21 is patient housing. It's a 4-story building. It's located between buildings by building 2. And the buildings actually formed a courtyard, so the patients were actually able to go out there because they were closed in by the walls of the building. And it was one of the very last buildings to be used before it closed in 1996. It was built in 1957, finished building it in 1967. Some of the most violent patients were housed here on the upper floors. The higher the floors went in the buildings, the more complicated the patients were. So the higher up you were, the more complicated the patients were. The underground tunnels were for steam. The buildings were, which were underneath the basement of number 7. Number 22 was once the original garages, but then became the hospital administration. Again, another 4-story building. It was built in 1957, finished being built in 1967. It's the intensive treatment unit. If a patient would have a violent episode, They were brought there. They would try to find out why, and then they would try to get the patient into a more manageable state, sometimes using medication. Then they would go back to their ward. Again, some didn't leave. They ended up in building 15, which was the prison for Kings Park. Number 23 was a recreation building, also known as Buckman Day Treatment Center. It was built in 1970. This actually had a bowling alley, an auditorium, a swimming pool, library, and basketball court. So the more functioning residents and patients there were able to participate in dances. And I think that the employees that were talking about the great times at Pilgrim are the ones that actually worked with the more functioning patients and got to enjoy being able to participate in some of these activities with them. Number 24 is another one. I do not know what it is. So if you know, please comment in the comments. I would appreciate it. I would really love to know. Number 25 is the Annex building, known as the Pest House. It was built in 1887 to 1889. It was used to house it says it's used to house rats. I'm like almost hesitant to say this. But I don't believe that that's what it was for. I believe it was used to house patients that were quarantined and being used. A lot of medication treatments were also tested on patients that were there. And I think they meant to say like test rats. And that's horrible that they would even refer to them. But this was built between 1887 and 1889. Number 26 was originally male cottages. Number 27 was Ward 23. Number 28 was the tailor shop, which was built in 1896 and removed to make room for building number 94. 29 was the power plant that shut down in 1996. It was built in 1967 to replace buildings 6 and 84, which were removed when building 29 was built. They provided electric even after it closed in 1996, and this was the newest power plant that sent power through the underground tunnels. Number 30 is a lumber shed. 31, bowling alley, which was built in 1926 and demolished in 1975. Number 32 is a clubhouse for employees. It was built in 1895 to 1896 and demolished in 1975. 33 is residence. It was demolished in the 1920s before building number 5, and it was the laundry that replaced it. It was demolished in 1967. Number 34 is the Doing Home, which was a residence for nurses. Again, employees lived right there on the grounds. Number 35 was Home V, which was a nurse dormitory, identical to number 36, and it closed its doors in the 1970s and was formally demolished in 2013. Number 36 was also nursing dormitories. It was Home W, identical to number 35, and it closed in the 1970s. 37 was staff housing, built in 1931, finished being built in 1934, non-medical employees. Number 38 is kitchen A and B, part of the 4-story cottages with buildings 8 to 12. They were removed in the 1970s. 39 was the Veterans Group patient nursing, and that was originally a doctor's garage, originally Group 2 patient ward. Number 40 was built in 1932, and that's actually a daycare center for the employees of Kings Park Psychiatric Center. Number 40 to 43 were patient wards, and buildings 41, 42, and 43 were actually replaced by the original Group 4 during the late 1930s for females as the quad became connected. The quad was used to house the residents. The three buildings are all linked together and created a central dining area. It contained an interior courtyard, long hallways and stairways, very easily to get lost. Many people have said that. It's very easy to get lost in that building. Some say that it's the creepiest building. 41 and 42 were completed in 1932, and 33 was completed in 1933. Guys, I'm sorry if I'm talking too fast. I'm just trying to go through this pretty quick. Number 44 was for food storage. There was a bakery, food storage warehouse. It was built in 1934 to 1936 and demolished in February of 2017. And it was actually used as the morgue prior to Building 7 being built. Number 45 was the water tower and the piggery, which was built in 1913 to 1950 and demolished in the 1960s. Its number was rescued for the water tower that was built in 1957 to 1960 on the top of the hill, holding 500,000 gallons of water. You can climb to the top, and they say that the view from the top of the water tower was absolutely gorgeous. And Potter's Field, the cemetery, is located very close by. Number 46 was the root cellar. It was the first farming building built in 1917 and was demolished in the late 1940s, replaced with the dairy barn and maintenance barn, giving the number 47 for the building. So number 47 was the dairy barn, and it was demolished in the 1990s, decades after it was abandoned. Number 48 was a maintenance barn. 48A was the head farmer's house. It was built in 1837 to 1858, and it stands along Route 25A, belongs to the Kelly family. It was purchased by the state in 1885, so they could use it for fire practice. So it looks like they do a lot of fire practice there. Number 49, Cottage J, which was the assistant director's house, built in 1890 to 1892. In 1951, it was converted to a two-story home. It was destroyed by fire in 2000 and demolished a year later. Number 50 is the old garage, then dining room T. It was built in the 1890s to 1892. The dining room for hospital employees and was demolished in 1968. Number 51 is the old storage house. Number 52 was the schoolhouse. It was originally a bakery, converted into the schoolhouse in the 1950s. It was built in 1890, ended in 1892, and demolished in 1970. 53 was the sewage pump. It was built in the 1930s. 54 was Group 2, wards 51 and 52. Originally used for adolescents, it later became and was referred to as the Mental R ward. I won't say that word. That word is just despicable to me, but that's what it was called before it was abandoned. 55, Screen House. It was the sewer disposal and the boathouse that overlooked the canal. The boathouse was built in the 1920s near the canal, which became the boat basin, part of the Nessequak River State Park, and was demolished in 2013. 56 was Cafe 56. It was patient ran. It was a cafe store, and this is where they would get those cards that they put the money on when they worked on the farm. It was known as Cafe 56, built in 1972 to 73, one of the last to be built and one of the first to be demolished in 2012. 57 was electrical and plumbing. 58 was the old ice house. It was demolished. I don't know what year, but it was also the pickle and the sauerkraut house. In 59 was the maintenance workshop. It was originally the hospital's first power plant. 60 was the old pump house. 61 was the truck barn. built in 1890, and it was damaged by fire in the 1970s, burning it down to its foundation. The rubble stayed there until 2013, along with buildings 59 and 60. Number 62 was the garage. It was built during the 1890s. And then 63 was the shed for the wagons. The garage was demolished and rebuilt as the current building, number 62. It was built in the early 1900s and then demolished again in 1956. Number 64 was another garage. It was used for the supervisors of the truck garage, built in 1912, finished in 1915, and demolished in 1950. 65 was the garden house and greenhouse. It was built in 1939, still in use today by the Nessequak River State Park. 66 was the blacksmith shop, built in 1924 and replaced by building number 86. 67 was the superintendent's residence, built in the late 1800s, demolished in the 1930s, and replaced by building number 67. Number 68 was a shed, built in the 1890s to 1892. 69 was the greenhouse, built in 1922. After it was abandoned, it was destroyed by fire. Number 70 was hotbed, a series of sewage hotbeds built in 1922, also destroyed by fire. Number 71 was a 6-car staff garage built in 1928, destroyed by fire as well. Number 17 was the tool shed. Number 73 was the Veterans Memorial Hospital, built in 1910 to 1920. Number 74 was the Chief Engineer's Residence, built in 1890 to 1892. Number 75 is a garage, which is still in use, built in 1938. Number 76, another garage, used for building number 78. Number 77, Mechanic's Residence, built in 1890 to 1892 and demolished in the 1990s. Number 78 was the White House, built in the 1890s to 1892. It was a 2-family house for doctors of the hospital, given the name White House for its color, and demolished in the 1990s. Number 79, I do not know what that one was. Number 80 is the Auditorium and Theater, also known as York Hall. Also, as per the sign on the property, the clothing pavilion and the retail store. It was built in 1928 to 1932. 81, I do not know what that one was. 82 is the Employee Recreation Center. It was originally built as the morgue and then later converted. Number 83 is the Firehouse and Safety Department, built in 1924 to 1925. And 84, number 84 is the addition to the power plant. It stood near the railroad spur. Number 85 is a small steam pipe conjunction house. It was renumbered to building number 6. We're getting there, guys. Number 86 is the original blacksmith shop, replaced the original one, number 66, built in the early 1900s. 87, I do not know what that was. 88 was the slaughterhouse, renumbered as building number 46. It was built for the dairy farm in 1940 to 1943. 89 was the comfort station, which was the public restroom, built in 1955 and demolished in February of 2017. Number 90 is the hospital offices. It was originally the Missy House, was used as the nursing school, originally located in building 11C, was one of the most well-known, highly rated nursing schools in the country. It was built in 1915 to 1970 and remained in use until 1996. Number 91 was a 6-car garage that was built in 1931 for the staff of the Missy House. Number 92 was the grandstand, built in 1925 and knocked down between 1999 and 2001. Number 93, that was the patient wards, the infirmary, the tallest building which still stands and is the most highly paranormal investigated building. It was built between 1939 and 1941, 13 stories high, reaching 143 feet tall. The building Kings Park is known for so many reasons. Some say it is famous. This is the most explored building, bringing attention to the building from local police and state police. It housed over 1,200 patients. It housed patients from wards 17 to 38. Boaters on Long Island used this building as a landmark. Electric shock treatment occurred at the building number 93. By the time it closed down, it was already pretty much abandoned. It can be accessed by the underground tunnel system. It is still standing. It was, again, used as the infirmary for geriatric patients as well as for patients with chronic physical ailments. In the 1950s, lobotomy and electric shock therapy were done there. Number 94 was the laundry building, built in 1953. It was built to replace building number 5. Number 95 were doctors' cottages, built 1924 to 1925. The same as the rest that I'm going to read. So 95 to 99 were doctors' cottages, built from 1924 to 1925. 100 additional cottages built for the doctors in 1950 to 1952. Building 101 was additional cottages built between 1950 and 1952. Building 102 was Building 4A, was built in 1898. It was the administration building of Group 1 until Building 4 was built, destroyed by fire in 1972 and demolished by 1976. Building 103 to 108, I do not know what they were, as well as 109 and 110. Building 111, I don't know what it was, but it was demolished in the 1970s. 112 was demolished in the 1976. It was Building 4, female patients, destroyed by fire in 1972 and demolished in 1976. Number 113 was demolished in the mid-70s. It was Building 4C, built in 1898. Building 114 was demolished in the 1970s. It was built in 1898. It was Building 4D, damaged by fire from Building 113 and demolished in the 1970s. Building 115, also demolished in the mid-1970s, built in 1898. It was for male patients. Building 116, demolished in 1976. Building 4F, it was Kitchen Group 1, damaged by fire in the 1970s. 117 was demolished in the 1976. Building 4G, it was the dining hall for Group 1. Building 118, demolished in the 1970s. It was built in 1898, part of Group 1, housed Ward 47, demolished in 1970. 119 was demolished in 1970. It was Building 4I. It was part of Group 1, Ward 48 was in this building. 120, demolished by mid-1970s. It was Building 4J, built in 1898, and it was home to Ward 49, demolished in the 1970s. 121 was St. Joseph's Church, not officially part of the hospital, but built on the grounds. It was built in 1898 and destroyed by fire and demolished in the 1970s. Then there was 122. It was Group 2 patient ward, built in 1912 and closed in the mid-1970s. 123 was the kitchen dining area for Group 2. It closed in the mid-1970s, only demolished on August 13th of 2012. Standing abandoned for over 40 years, it was built between 1912 and 1915, one of the oldest buildings. 124, one of the oldest buildings as well. Built between 1912 and 1950, it was demolished in the 1990s after being destroyed by fire. It home to wards 53 and 54. 125, Building 73A, built 1925 to 1926. It was the main office for the Veterans Memorial Hospital unit until it eventually became admissions for the entire hospital. 1999, after the hospital closed, it became the main office for the Nesquak River State Park. 126, Building 73B, it was 4 family staff residents. There was 2 apartments on each floor. 127 was Building 73C, 4 apartments, 2 on each floor, built in 1925 to 1926. 128, These are all apartments. So 128, 129 were apartments as well. 130 was a cottage. It was building 73F, built in 1925 to 1926. 131 was a cottage. It was demolished in 2016, built in 1925 to 1926. 132, the same thing. 133 is a cottage. 134 is a cottage. They were both demolished in 2016. 135 is Building K. It was demolished mid-September 2016, along with its steam tunnels. It had one of the best views of the hospital houses, wards 85 to 86. 136, a Group 3 patient ward. The original medical surgical building, it was converted to patient housing when building number 7 opened. It was built between 1910 and 1912. It was part of the veteran group with 137, 143, and 147, and it was established in the 1920s. 137 was the dental office, lab, hydrotherapy room, and the beauty salon. It was also later turned to a kitchen for Group 3, Building 73, built between 1910, part of the Veterans Group. 138, Veterans Group Patient Nursing, Building 73N, wards 81 to 84, built in 1925. 139, Kitchen and Dining Room for Building 73O, for Veterans Group, built in 1925. Kitchen services ended in 1978. 140 was the isolation ward, built in 1925, building 73P, home to Ward 140 for single patient seclusion rooms, became offices for civil service employees associated with the CSEA. 141, or Building 39, building 73Q, built 1931 to 1932, housed wards 87 to 92, and it was connected to the underground tunnel system. 142, Building 73R, 2-family apartments, demolished mid-September 2016, along with its steam tunnels. It was built in 1925, before abandoned, used for elderly care. 143 was built between 1910 to 1912. It was part of the Veterans Group. 136, 137, and 147 housed wards 55 and 56. It was demolished in the 1980s. 144, Building 73T, was a 3-story brick home to hospital attendants, built 1928 and abandoned in 1990. I do not know what 145 and 146 were. 147 was built between 1910 and 1912. It was part of the Veterans Group with buildings 136, 37, and 43. Housed wards 57 and 58. It was demolished in the early 1980s. The underground tunnels connected it to building 137. Building 148 and 149, I do not know what they were. Building 150 and 151 were at the end, were cottage-style halfway houses. They were built in 1987. These are still in use today in 2023, 2024, and are operating by the state as community residents for former patients of the hospital. Then you have your railroad spur, which was abandoned in the 1980s, and it was converted into part of a hiking and bike trail in the year 2003. In the spring of 2000, the waterfront portion of the Farmers Campus was reopened as the Nessequak River State Park, protecting it from any development. And I am going to breathe. I am sorry, guys. I know many of you might not be interested in what those buildings were, but for people that actually go there and explore the numbers of the buildings and what they were, and for families that had family members there or friends there, those buildings are important. So guys, without any further ado, let's get on to the paranormal investigation.
Hey guys, it's Steve Paranormal. Welcome back to my channel. Today we will be, me and my son, we're exploring the Kings County, right? The park?
No, Kings Park.
Kings Park. And they have abandoned buildings, most of them asylums back in the day. We got our masks. This is where my son went. He went into the morgue. There's a building where the morgue is. And something followed him home. A little boy followed him home. And oh, yeah, I just passed on his bike. That seemed like a loop, right? How did he do that like that? He just passed us. That was weird. Anyway, come with us.
It wasn't open before.
Okay. This is Kings Park for those. Oh, look at that, my light goes on. Do I have night vision on this thing? It's actually safe. What is that, a card thing?
Oh, yeah, I know what this is. Yeah,
Now, what is this? Is this part of the asylum?
yeah. These are bathrooms.
Yeah, the tile. There's a sink. My camera got blurry. I mean, something's interfering with it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Doesn't mean that things can't move. Something moved down there.
Yeah,
You saw it?
yeah.
Wait, I need my thing.
Okay.
What thing? That's another bathroom. Never mind. Where did that guy go?
You went into one of the rooms that...
Alright, guys.
That's a basement.
I had to get my flash on.
That's a basement. I'm not gonna go upstairs, don't forget it.
Oh no. In these places, I wouldn't trust it. Yeah, but something definitely moved down that hall. Watch this, look. All the things are open. Refrigerator. Okay.
These are just rooms.
This is a bedroom? Yeah. Closet. Oh, maybe. See, my camera wasn't even normal. Just that. And when I thought I saw that UFO. Oh, they put flowers and stuff on the window.
Be careful, hold on. There's nails coming up on that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm I'm surprised. This building was never open in the years that I've been here. What? What?
What's something? Which way do we get out?
Mom!
What?
Why are you running?
Because what? I don't know. I just felt something. Sorry guys, I got spooked. I think this is the floor with all the bathrooms. I think. But why so many bathrooms on one floor?
I'm surprised. This building was never open in the years that I've been here.
A lot of bathrooms. Oh!
What?
I felt something. Which way do we get out? A lot of bathrooms. Oh!
What?
I felt something. Which way do we get out? Oh. Scared the hell out of me.
Mom!
What?
Why are you running?
Because what? I don't know. I just felt something. Sorry guys, I got spooked. Let me know if you saw anything down that hallway, because I saw something move and I saw a shadow. So let me know if you saw what I saw. And then when I passed one of those rooms, that's what happened. I got a cold feeling, cold sensation. But that's what threw me off, because it's so hot, and all of a sudden I got blasted with an air conditioner, a fan or whatever. I guess they were ripping out the ceilings. Look.
What's that?
Yeah. I was looking at the closet. I had a weird feeling about it, and something flew out.
My camera just shut on itself.
Oh, they're messing with the electricity. My son's camera, it just shut off just now?
It did this. It exited out and took
Just
off.
before, when we passed that room?
Yeah.
I told you something was in that room. That was either an orb or it was a shadow. All I know is something flew off the camera. Guys. Oh. All right, so. That was crazy. I passed a room and it had a closet in it on the side. And as I was looking at the closet, I had this weird feeling, and all something came flying out. And I haven't seen one bug in there. There wasn't no bugs in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, something came flying from my camera too. I don't know if it was a piece of dust or whatever.
No, that went flying. That a piece of dust doesn't do that, and there was no wind. So, yeah, there was no window in there. Anyway, my son's camera shut off. He exited out of the camera. But there's definitely something. Well, I don't know if I had service. In these buildings, sometimes you don't have service. It has nothing to do with really the spirit.
Could be concrete.
True, or it could just be the area. I mean, there's no...
I have service back now.
Oh. It's crazy. Yeah, it might be the concrete. But anyway, where are we going? Is there a trail here? So, you guys, I think it was at 7:37, I'm not sure. But, if anything, rewind back and see if you saw what I saw, because when it came, it looked like it was coming at me, so I jumped back. But there was definitely something in that hallway that moved. because they're taking down the ceiling, so something went like this, and my son saw it too. This place is whack, but there's just so many bathrooms. No, I almost fell. That's what I do. I'm a clumsy diva. So we're gonna keep taking a walk around. Did you hear that? Is it the guy?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that guy, I should have asked if I should videotape, but he has a 360 camera, one of those 360 cameras, and he was using it. He says he was getting good stuff, so I don't know. He seems like he was into paranormal too, don't you think? I wonder if he has a YouTube channel. I should have asked him. But it looked like he was there for the same reason. He said he got some good stuff, so that could only mean one thing. I mean, there's nothing there to really take this. All right, guys. Stay tuned. Hey, this is the moment you've been waiting for. We are going into the morgue. We may have to climb through a window. I don't know how this is going to work for me, because, like, yeah. But, this whole thing is a morgue?
No, not the whole thing.
Oh, shit. You see? My phone was on 50%, now it's on 20, and I know that it doesn't die that fast. Oh no, where you going? Oh no, where you going? Okay, let's see. Sorry about that, guys. Well, it's boarded up? Oh no. You sure it's totally boarded up? I don't want to... Oh, man. Damn, guys. Yeah. So, this building right here that's attached, this whole thing is a morgue?
No, not the whole thing. It's part of the psychiatric unit. You have to go in here that way, and within this building, one of these windows over here is one of the mirrors.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wonder if we could look through the window.
No.
Oh, somebody's on my back. Okay. Well, there's no, there was a hole in that one. Those doors are closed too. Damn. I just saw a name. Oh. I thought there was a name that's how the heck did they do that? What's down there? Oh. Ooh, that's creepy. Ooh, it smells old. Hey guys, so the morgue was boarded up, and it seems like other buildings are boarded up. And I mean, there's a lot of buildings like stretched out, and we'll always could come back. But that first building that we went in, there was definitely activity. I wish I would have done a spirit box, but that was just insane. I didn't want to miss anything because I only have my phone on me, but definitely a place to come back. So there will be a part two. Hey guys, it's Steve with Paranormal. We're back at the location, and we brought two mixed friends, Sam and Pat. And this time we're going to do a spirit box. And we're going to see what comes through. As you can see, I captured, or my son captured, something in the mirror in one of the bathrooms. I posted a picture on Facebook, and it was crazy. I never captured anything like this. And I'm very excited to see what the spirit box says. So, come with us. I'm here to communicate with any spirits. I do not allow you to attach yourself to us, harm us in any way. You're not to follow us home.
Do you know?
Do I know what? Who you are? Do you have a name?
This is the bathroom.
Use this device to communicate. Use your own closet. You just press the closet. Yes, you press the closet.
Yeah.
Are you in the closet? How many spirits are here? Did you hear that?
I did.
Come on. This is where you
Yeah.
got that thing in here. You're taking all the video, yeah?
Come here. I want to come.
What?
It's okay, you can communicate. Alexander, okay. And you have a
Okay, that's creepy.
you know, like a little 2 points of head bolt.
Yeah, that's a brother's name.
How did you pass, Alexander? Can you tell me how you passed?
Well, try going the other way. We went that way too. Yeah, there are stairs. Yeah.
Just walking around the floor, there's already motion.
Wow. So how old were you when you passed?
93 at this bad.
Huh?
93 at this bad.
Yeah, no, this is really bad.
Alright, we'll head to
That was me.
93. Alright, that's it for this building. We're gonna go to another building.
What?
Something touched my neck. And see that thing down there?
Yeah.
That was moving. I got it on camera.
Yeah, that was moving too. And see? Yeah.
Alright, let's go.
Okay, guys. We got out of the building. There was a lot of mold. And some of the floors weren't steady. So we're going to another building, and where there's a graveyard and stuff. I got some weird responses from the spirit box. Actually, pretty funny. It was a man that came through our boy, Alexander, and he actually said the word hidden when my son passed over that bathroom. So that could have been a man in the mirror with long hair, based on the history of this place. It was around in the 70s and 80s, and you know, a lot of men had long hair. So
No, it's boarded up.
okay. Okay.
not welcome in this one.
Is it open?
No, it's not, but also there's a huge spider on it.
Where?
In the corner, it's black, it's this big.
Oh, see now.
We'd have to walk through it.
No. Nope.
That's why I was like,
Spirits are one thing. Spiders are big. Nope.
yep.
Nope. Especially that big, freaking Harry Potter spider. No. I could have swore I saw something. Need to communicate with any spirits in this building. I do not allow you to hurt me or my friends. And you are not to follow us home. Pathetic.
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 Was that what I said? Or what's going on? What do you mean? I come here with utmost respect. Just want to know your story. I know you guys went through a lot in these buildings. Torture and everything. Use this device to communicate. Use your energy. I don't
It's inside.
It's inside.
It's inside. What's inside?
Yeah, it just said it's inside.
But none of us have gloves to take it off.
Yeah, but if... What an
You're a
angel.
goddamn liar.
No, you're a liar.
Not to make you angry, but I do not believe you.
Yeah. Elderly, okay.
So that's what you went through.
It's inside.
It's inside. What was inside? Was it a nurse or doctor that hurt you?
Or are you a nurse or a doctor?
Oh, were you a nurse or doctor that got injured on the job?
Or did you hurt yourself?
The spirits are...
He told me.
I thought that was like a witch's thing.
He told me? He told you what? What did he tell you?
I feel like we get so much more activity if we get inside.
That's the only spot to get in is over there.
I know. And that's hard. They have it blocked like they don't want something coming out.
Yeah.
You said it's inside. It's not
Be
them.
quiet.
Be quiet.
Is something gonna...
Now I don't want to be quiet.
Oh, you don't want to provoke me.
Oh no, but...
But, are you telling me to be quiet because something's coming, or what? What's behind that door?
Ding, ding, ding.
God damn it.
So it's a divot. It's not even...
Better not pay attention. I don't know if I didn't feel anything when I walked past it. I didn't even notice it until you guys noticed it. I was like oblivious to it.
Use this device to communicate.
Yes?
Yes. Are you saying yes to you're around here in this pentagram? Or were you saying, answering Sam when she said there's something inside that they're trying to keep in there? Oh, I feel like heavy, very heavy. Well, this is not helping either.
Why is he here?
Why is he here? Who are you talking about?
What? Or
I will say though, that we are protected with the butterflies that we keep around.
yeah. Because I walked through. I think I walked through the dead center.
Is that a butterfly?
Yeah.
And they're known for bringing positive energy and protecting.
Yeah, I didn't get stuck in open room. I'm okay.
All right. This is white noise. Use this device to communicate. And he said he had goosebumps.
So descended. Like descended downward? Is that a way to the basement?
There's a what? There's a way? There's a way. I was what? You were what? Did you die here? Without a doubt. What's your name? Phil? That's not like
help.
help. He said
Down here.
Down here.
That's the way to the basement.
Yep. Did they drag him to the basement?
Right,
They've
probably
used,
dead bodies. They probably bring them out through
they've
here.
used a lot of them.
The kids, they abuse the kids like motherfuckers.
They've used everyone.
maybe that's where they kept him, like solitary confinement.
The only way it seems to get up and over there is through that.
Is it exact?
It sounded like that. Did they hurt you? Did they hurt the children?
Help us.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting ideas.
I did it.
Were you a nurse? Ooh. I don't know.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Diva Paranormal. You and your son and his friends. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It was absolutely amazing just to see the inside, the grounds. Thank you so much. And everybody, don't forget to go over to her channel, subscribe, hit the like button. You can see the whole entire video on her channel. And just remember how important that like button is. So guys, in conclusion, the hospital was yet another hospital with overcrowding. In 1895, it was handed over to New York State. Kings Park Psychiatric Center is often described as the perfect setting for a horror movie, and many have actually been filmed here. As a result of the closing of Kings Park Psychiatric Center, Central Islip Psychiatric Center, and the largest of them all, Pilgrim State Psychiatric Hospital, many suffering from severe illness today are living on the streets, and a growing number end up in jail without the proper access to quality psychiatric care, or mostly as a result of them not taking their proper medication or psychiatric therapy. Therapy is so important. The last executive director of Kings Park calls the deinstitutionalization of the state hospital as a failed policy because it was done hastily and it was poorly planned. So instead of giving these patients a place to go, they just let them out and they were on their own. So guys, on a personal note from me and my husband, let's pray for better mental health care and education to improve mental health care. Mental health care should never be looked down on and should be treated with the care and the respect of every other illness. I wish everyone, all of you, all your family and friends, great physical and mental health. Don't forget, they go hand in hand. Guys, I want to thank you for sticking through this video. I know it was a long one. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and most of all, don't forget, every day's a mystery.